Coming up on Arirang News. Ahead of the Korean Thanksgiving holiday, Chuseok, the government has unveiled measures to better support people's livelihoods, including supplying a record amount of in-demand holiday items. The number of babies born in the country rose in the second quarter on year for the first time in more than 8 years. Yet concerns over the ultra-low birth rate continue, as the total fertility rate still remains very low. Based on a bipartisan agreement, an array of livelihood-related bills were passed today at Nat'l Assembly. The bills include the Nursing Act, providing a legal basis for physician assistant nurses. Thank you for joining us on Arirang News. I'm Kim Bo-kyung. Korea's harvest celebration this year takes place in mid-September. And ahead of the upcoming major traditional Chuseok holiday, financial authorities have come up with some measures to bring down consumer prices by boosting supplies of popular food items at markets. Our economics correspondent Lee Soo-jin starts us off.
The South Korean government is planning to implement a series of measures to boost livelihoods and spending during the upcoming Korean Thanksgiving holiday, Chuseok. Measures including providing tax incentives and increasing supply were discussed during an economic ministerial meeting headed by Finance Minister Chuseok on Wednesday.
Due to the heat wave, the prices of agricultural products and other essential items remain high, and the recovery of domestic consumption is relatively slow, making it difficult for households to feel that the economy is improving. In response, the government has developed a plan that focuses on stabilizing prices and improving livelihood.
To help stabilize prices, the government will supply 170,000 tons of the 20 most in-demand Chuseok items, including cabbages and apples, the largest ever amount for a Chuseok holiday. It will also slash import tariffs for 10 types of fruits such as bananas and pineapples by extending tariff rate quotas to the end of the year. The quotas were due to expire at the end of next month. In an effort to boost spending in traditional markets, the government is aiming to raise the income tax deduction rate for credit card usage from the current 40% to 80% in the second half of the year. And to increase usage of onuri gift certificates, which can be used in traditional markets, the limit on the amount allowed to be purchased will be raised from the current 1.5 million won, or around $1,100 to $1,500. This comes as consumer prices, a key gauge of inflation in July, rose 2.6% on year, up from the 2.4% increase the previous month on the back of high fruit prices. And in line with the Yoon administration's continued focus on helping small businesses, the government plans to provide loans and other financial support amounting to a whopping $32 billion to SMEs. Along with these measures, the government plans to launch a pan-governmental task force to manage prices and bring them down to the levels seen in 2021. Lee Soo-jin, Arirang News.
Findings for the second quarter of this year show an uptick in the number of couples tying the knot and in the number of babies born. However, concerns still linger. Our correspondent Moon Hae-ryun explains.
Some positive news regarding the country's population crisis, as the number of marriages and births surged in the second quarter of 2024. Data from Statistics Korea on Tuesday showed that the total number of births between April and June this year came to just under 57,000, an increase of 1.2% compared to the same period last year. It's the first time since the fourth quarter of 2015 that the number of births in South Korea has grown year on year by quarter. The number of births in June recorded an all-time low for the month of June. But the number of births in April and May saw a rise, which is what led to the overall increase for the second quarter. There were also more marriages in the same period this year, with just under 56,000 between April and June, which is an increase of more than 17% compared to the second quarter of 2023. This is the largest year-on-year jump in the number of marriages for any quarter. A spokesperson from Statistics Korea attributed the surge in the number of births and marriages to not only a backlog caused by COVID-19 restrictions, which meant weddings were delayed, but also to various efforts from the Yoon administration to tackle the population crisis with benefits for married couples. One expert says that another big factor behind the rising number of marriages could be the current demographic.
There were a lot of births around 1992, so there's a large number of people in the age group looking to get married. The number of births could rise slightly because there are so many people in the age group that can give birth.
But it could be too soon to celebrate just yet. Last year, the total fertility rate, which is defined as the average number of children that are born to a woman in her lifetime, hit a record low of 0.72. In the second quarter of 2024, the total fertility rate came to 0.71, which is the same as in the second quarter of 2023. When comparing the total number of births from January to June this year and last year, the number for this year fell by more than 3,000. The population also saw a natural decline of 8,700 in June, bigger than the figure for June 2023. Natural decline is calculated by subtracting the number of deaths from the number of births, and the country has seen a natural decline in the population since November 2019. 문혜련, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, over in Parliament, in what is the first bipartisan accord of the current National Assembly, lawmakers today approved an array of bills to improve people's daily lives. Our National Assembly correspondent Lee Si-woo reports.
On Wednesday, the 22nd National Assembly representatives were hard at work, hammering out 28 pieces of legislation that will impact many aspects of people's lives, tackling pending issues in real estate, energy, medical service, and more. In a rare show of consensus, all 295 lawmakers present at the plenary session voted to provide greater support for the victims of real estate rental scams. A revision to an existing act, this will guarantee the victims up to 20 years of residence in the property they've rented. Another proposal restricting the rights of parents to inherit their deceased sons or daughters' money and assets when they did not sufficiently carry out their parental duties passed with strong support. The so-called Kuhara bill is named after the late K-pop star, whose mother and brother disputed over who would inherit the singer's money after her death. And perhaps the most fiercely debated, the revision to the current Nursing Act, which was tabled after a last-minute agreement in a late-night meeting of the Health and Welfare Committee. The rival lawmakers met halfway just hours before the plenary session and agreed to provide the legal basis for further medical practice by nurses who qualify to act as physician assistants.
This defines the additional roles of nurses with qualifying professional, clinical, and educational experience in providing medical service under a doctor's general guidance or delegation.
The Nursing Act aims to protect them so they can put all their attention and focus on providing medical care to patients and thereby ultimately protect the lives and health of the people.
This comes at an especially critical time as South Korea deals with a shortage of medical personnel at major hospitals after many doctors resigned in protest of medical school enrollment expansion, and just a day before the nurses planned protests calling for better working conditions. A goal since the previous assembly, the revision passed with 283 lawmakers voting for, 2 against, and 5 abstaining in an unprecedented bipartisan move toward a coalition by the current assembly. But tensions still linger as the rival lawmakers prepare to discuss potential agendas for the much-anticipated meeting between their party leaders, PPP's Han and DP's Lee, which is expected in weeks. Lee Si-woo, Arirang News.
The labor union representing nurses and medical workers here in the country has been heralding a strike, which is set to begin tomorrow, while negotiations are still underway. This comes even after the Nursing Act was passed today at National Assembly, while some speculate the passage of the bill could lessen the possibility of the strike happening. Still, the government is urging them to call off the strike as it prepares emergency care plans during the Chuseok holiday. Cha Yoon-kyung has more.
According to the country's Central Labor Relations Committee on Wednesday, labor unions of medical workers at 11 out of the 61 hospitals that had planned to strike reached a wage agreement following all-night negotiations, raising hopes of avoiding an all-out walkout. Negotiations are still underway with other hospitals, but should they break down, the labor unions, which represent some 30,000 nurses and medical workers, will begin a strike at 7 a.m. Thursday. The Korean Health and Medical Workers Union is demanding improvements in working conditions, such as prompt normalization of medical treatments and a wage increase, amid the serious strain caused by thousands of trainee doctors walking off their jobs for more than half a year. Once the strike begins, hospitals will suffer from disruption to medical treatments, although they plan to maintain essential health care, such as emergency care and intensive care. Health Minister Cho Kyu-hong, meanwhile, urged the union to refrain from participating in the planned strike, which came in response to the lingering medical vacuum. Cho emphasized that the government will establish a real-time monitoring system and take necessary measures if medical institutions participating in the strike show signs of disruption in maintaining essential operations.
The government will continue to push ahead with the reform plan by taking measures to minimize medical inconveniences, such as extending office hours and weekdays for public hospitals that are not taking part in the strike.
On the other hand, the Health Ministry on Wednesday unveiled a set of measures to deal with emergency care before and after the Chuseok holiday next month. Public hospitals will operate in emergency mode for 2 weeks before and after the Chuseok holiday and keep 4,000 hospitals and clinics operational, along with 29 emergency rooms for critically ill patients. The Korean Health and Medical Workers Union and management lead are currently reviewing measures to raise emergency room physicians' pay additionally from the previous increase. Cha Yong-kyung, Arirang News.
North Korea claims to have test-fired an advanced version of its 240mm multiple rocket launcher as it aims to replace its old ones in the near future. The regime's leader, Kim Jong-un, was there at the site. Our defense correspondent, Choi Min-jung, looks into what's behind its intention.
North Korea has revealed what appears to be an upgraded version of its 240mm multiple rocket launcher. The regime state-run media reported Wednesday that Kim Jong-un the day before oversaw a test firing of the weapon with a new guidance system. The report claimed the test launch verified the weapon's performance with renewed maneuverability and firing capability. Kim reportedly also announced an important policy regarding the production and replacement of the weapon. This comes as experts say North Korea's existing 240mm multiple rocket launchers produced in the 1980s are aging and lack precision. The new ones reportedly have improved precision thanks to their guidance system. Back in May, the regime announced that the upgraded weapon would be deployed between 2024 and 2026.
North Korea's 240mm multiple rocket launchers are focused on attacking Seoul and the metropolitan area, and I think this is a final test fire before deployment.
There is also a possibility that the North may supply the upgraded weapons to Russia, as they had delivered 122mm multiple rocket launchers for use against Ukraine.
Given the timing of the escalating Russia-Ukraine war, and especially given the economic talks between North Korea and Russia, we cannot rule out the possibility of the weapon being exported to Russia.
South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff on Wednesday said the military detected and monitored the North's test launch and is keeping a close eye on signs of North Korea's provocation. The military vowed to respond immediately, firmly, and to the end against the regime's potential threats. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
Staying on the reclusive regime, South Korea's intelligence agency says that more North Koreans working in foreign embassies have been defecting to the South since the COVID-19 pandemic slowed down. This follows a civic group's recent claim that more than a dozen North Korean defectors have been arrested and detained in China. Our foreign affairs correspondent, Bae Eun-ji, reports.
Several people cross a shallow river in darkness. This is a video footage released by a South Korean-based civic group, saying they're North Korean defectors who were trying to flee to South Korea, but were arrested by Chinese police. The group said 15 North Korean defectors, 13 women and 2 children, were arrested in Kunming in southern China, which shares a border with South Asian countries. They were trying to take a speedboat to cross into a Southeast Asian country, then onward to South Korea. but were arrested as they were preparing to board. They will likely be repatriated, a fate that awaits nearly all North Korean escapees in Chinese police custody, and will likely be severely punished once they return to the north. The South Korean government said it's currently verifying the civic group's claim, while reiterating that North Korean defectors should not be forcibly sent back.
Our position is that under no circumstances should North Korean defectors residing abroad be forcibly repatriated against their will.
Separately, South Korea's National Intelligence Service said Wednesday that since the COVID-19 pandemic started to slow down in the second half of last year, there has been an increase in the number of North Korean defectors who used to work in foreign embassies or as foreign currency workers. But the agency noted that the number is less than the figure recorded when former leader Kim Jong-il led the regime. It also said an increase in this number is not necessarily a sign of instability in Kim Jong-un's regime, but added that it's closely monitoring these changes. In fact, in November, a senior North Korean diplomat based in Cuba defected with his wife and child to South Korea. And the Korean government has been saying the number of elite North Koreans with professional jobs escaping to the South has steadily increased in recent years. 배은지, Arirang News.
Shifting gears a bit, South Korean battery makers Samsung SDI and U.S. automobile company General Motors are set to build an electric vehicle battery factory in the United States. Samsung SDI revealed on Wednesday that the two companies signed an agreement to invest $3.5 billion to build a plant in Indiana. The EV plant will initially have an annual production capacity of 27 gigawatt-hours, enough for some 350,000 EVs, and with further expansions, the annual capacity is expected to rise to 36 gigawatt-hours. Mass production at the joint plant is set to start in 2027. Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida is reportedly reviewing plans to attend the Quad Summit during his visit to the United States late next month. Citing sources, Kyodo News reported Wednesday that Prime Minister Kishida is likely to meet with U.S. President Joe Biden and attend the four-way meeting involving the leaders of Australia, India, Japan, and the U.S. Kishida's visit to the U.S. is expected to be his final overseas trip before stepping down, as he announced earlier this month that he will not run in the upcoming party leadership vote in September. His predecessor, Yoshihide Suga, also attended the Quad Summit just before he stepped down in September 2021. In the U.S., Republican Party presidential candidate Donald Trump has finally agreed to a televised debate with his Democratic counterpart Kamala Harris, live on ABC News on September 10th. Lee Seung-jae has the latest.
The last time former U.S. President Donald Trump took part in a televised debate was in June against U.S. President Joe Biden. With Biden struggling in that debate, Trump's chances of winning the November election rose. Months later, Trump has agreed to another televised debate. However, this time, he is looking at a completely different opponent, Vice President Kamala Harris. Taking to his social media platform Truth Social on Tuesday, Trump said he has agreed to take part in the televised debate hosted by ABC News against Harris on September 10th, but under the condition that the rules are the same as those enforced in CNN's June debate. Reiterating the previous rules, Trump said the debate will be held with both candidates standing up without pre-written notes. He called for a fair and equitable debate with no questions being given in advance to either side. However, the Trump and Harris camps continued to argue over whether to allow the muting of microphones during the September debate. Trump's campaign insists that each candidate should have their microphones muted when it's not their turn to speak, as was the case in June. However, the Harris campaign believes that the microphones should be open throughout the debate to allow viewers to hear if Trump interrupts or talks over the vice president. The debate is scheduled to be held in Philadelphia and will be moderated by David Muir and Lindsay Davis from ABC News. The September 10th debate was initially set to take place between Trump and Biden before the incumbent dropped out of the race. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Ukraine is poised to unveil its four-part framework to end Russian aggression to the U.S. in September on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly, and the success of this framework is said to strongly depend on the U.S.'s support. An Sung-jin reports.
Ukraine wants to end the war with Russia, and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy seeks to do so by presenting to the U.S. a victory plan which will force Russia to end the war.
It will be fair to present this plan to the U.S. President. The success of this plan depends on him, whether we will get what is in this plan or not, whether we will have freedom to use the things prescribed by the plan or not.
While speaking at a forum on Tuesday, Zelenskyy added that he will present this plan in September during a meeting with Biden and will also convey it to Biden's two potential successors, Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. Zelenskyy also noted how the recent operation in the Kursk region in Russia is a part of this plan. Ukraine's Kursk Oblast operation intended to divert Russian military forces from other areas, especially offensives in eastern Ukraine, such as Pokrovsk, a key hub with a crucial railway station. According to the commander-in-chief Alexander Syrsky, Russia has deployed 30,000 troops to the Kursk region, and the number is growing. During the same forum, Zelenskyy also announced that Ukraine carried out its first test of a domestically made ballistic missile, though further details could not be provided.
There was successful test of the first ballistic Ukrainian missile, and I congratulate defense industry with this fact.
Though ballistic missiles have been used against Russia, they had been provided by the U.S. rather than built domestically. Meanwhile, Russia's air attacks on Ukraine have been continuing since early this week, causing casualties and blackouts across the country. Russian drone and missile attacks targeted multiple regions in Ukraine on Tuesday, killing at least 6 people. And as Kyiv's incursion into the Kursk region continues, IAEA Chief Rafael Grossi stated on Tuesday that Russia's Kursk nuclear power plant was at serious risk of a nuclear accident due to its fragility. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
With Typhoon Sansan heading to Japan, it is expected to penetrate Japan later in the week, and the damage is expected to be significant because it is strong and moves slowly. In Korea, typhoon and windstorm warnings have been issued at sea, and strong winds are expected along the coast. Around 100 millimeters of rain will fall on Jeju Island by tomorrow, and up to 60 to 80 in the eastern parts of Gangwon-do province and coastal areas of Gyeongsang-do provinces by Friday. Tomorrow, Seoul will start off at 23 degrees Celsius. Daytime temperatures will move up to 33 in Seoul and Daejeon, Gwangju, Daegu, and Gyeongju, 32 degrees. There will be many places where tropical nights take a break in inland areas for the time being, but the heat will continue at around 33 degrees in the west, including Seoul. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
That's all we have for today. Thank you for watching. Arirang News will be back at 9 a.m. Korea time.